Hill. But it was the closest Episcopal church to the Fort home, and so he made it, as he supposedly should, in the family's parish church. And so the family regularly attended it. Ford participated in some of the church's social outreach programs, and he was viewed by successive pastors, one of whom I interviewed, as a man of genuine religious belief. He did have a religious relationship with a Grand Rapids evangelist named James Zio, son of Skid Row denizen in Philadelphia. Man who had a conversion experience. And some writers at the time lampooned Zioli for his hip dress and for his street language. I mean, he was hip. But in reading, I found Zioli a rather likable and remarkably gifted person. He purposely adopted his dress and manner, for example, because he worked with professional athletes and showbiz. I ended up viewing Zioli's influence as an addition to Ford's faith rather than as a contradiction. And when I interviewed a couple weeks ago Chuck Colson of Watergate fame, I'm not dropping these names. I don't know anybody. But some people arranged various interviews for me, and it's good to get confirmation or denial from people who knew the reality, not the appearance of these presidents. When I interviewed Chuck Colson, he agreed that Ford was one of the most genuinely religious presidents we've had. The same lack of contradiction seems to characterize Jimmy Carter. From the beginning of his campaign for president, he said that he was a born-again Christian and Southern Baptist. He actually had to define the word evangelical for newsmen. But Jimmy Carter was a different kind of born-again Christian and a different kind of Southern Baptist. He tapped into the traditions of Walter Rushmore, founder of the social gospel movement, and of Martin Luther King Jr., both Baptists. And this combination made him a somewhat different kind of president from his predecessors and a very different kind of ex-president. Some religious Americans did find a difference between appearance and reality in Carter's religion, but many evangelicals who voted for Carter in 1976, and most evangelicals did, felt by 1978 betrayed by his policies. By 1980, they were openly campaigning against him. What writers call the religious right acquired its major influence during the Reagan and the two Bush administrations, but it steadily grew during the Carter years. So evangelicals saw a difference between appearance and reality in Carter's presidencies. Non-evangelicals tended not to. They saw rather a smiling, always smiling, born-again president who had certain idealistic ideas and who really seemed to practice what he believed. But Carter's presidency, which has been termed a ministerial presidency, never reached its idealistic goals. Many voters identified with its spirit and programs, but the majority of voters did not. And the religious right helped to make Carter into a one-term president. Tomorrow night, when I speak about Ronald Reagan, I will tell the story of a product of a mixed marriage between a lapsed Roman Catholic and a committed Protestant. Reagan seems to have kept the personal characteristics of his father, but the religious faith of his mother. Besides a critique of Mr. Reagan's programs made by certain writers and denominational leaders, the major difference between appearance and reality in his life seems to have been his profession of Christian faith that was unaccompanied by church attendance. I'll talk about that tomorrow night. But for tonight, to many critics, Reagan's absence from church, his continual absence from church, even for Easter and Christmas at times, seemed to show that he was hypocritical. Because if you believe, then you attend. In addition, it seemed to critics ironic that evangelical leaders were supporting a man who was divorced and remarried at a time when divorced presidents were in good order, who had a wife who consulted astrologers, who had raised a dysfunctional family, and who rarely attended church. These were not exactly evangelical guidelines. But research seems to indicate that Reagan, I think, was a genuinely religious man. He regularly prayed. He was careful inculcated in him, and it was a deep introduction to Christianity. What he seems to have done after leaving college is to have discarded his mother's teachings about regular church attendance. In their place, he adopted his father's approach of simply not attending church. So like John F. Kennedy, Ronald Reagan seems to have been his father's son in some important ways. George H.W. Bush is, for me, one of the surprise presidents in terms of personal religious faith. The American press, I think, never quite made it clear how regular Bush was in his church attendance and how oriented towards and concerned with the Christian faith he was. Bush came from a staunch Episcopal family. His father, the senator, and his mother, the matriarch, did at their home in Greenwich, Connecticut, what the compilers of the Book of Common Prayer wanted them to do. They led daily prayers at home for the family from the Book of Common Prayer. The morning prayer service, the evening prayer service, the Book of Common Prayer does not say priest, you know. It is really intended to be led just as often by the father of the family. And the Bushes were low church Episcopalians. So when they were in Kennebunk and the Summer Episcopal Chapel, St. Anne's wasn't open there, they went to the First Congregational Church and did not feel defiled, you know. Bush found it easy to become a Presbyterian elder when he lived in Midland, Texas. He wasn't concerned with such things as the doctrine of the apostolic succession. And the story of his coming to the Presbyterian church at 6:30 every morning and praying when his little daughter was dying of leukemia is extremely moving. It's not bullshit we often think of. Even when he was unofficial ambassador to China, Bush made sure to regularly attend the illegal but loosely condoned Protestant services held by elderly Chinese ministers in a little building in Beijing. There might be 20 people there. They all shouted out the hymns in their own languages. Some critics might deduce some elements of Bush's personal life to call his religious faith into question. And the genuineness of his relationship with the evangelicals he embraced as president is also very much open question, I think. But overall, the effect of researching George H.W. Bush's religion on me has been to emphasize how secular our Washington press corps generally is. Its neutrality may be good, it may be neutral, it may be bad, but I can only say that I gained little sense from regular readings of the Post, or the Times, or the news, magazines, and Bush's innate religiosity. He was raised in an observant Christian home, and he continued that tradition. On Bill Clinton, whom I'll cover in detail tomorrow night, I need to say very little. I'll say a lot tomorrow night. But I will say, one, there is a Saturday night Clinton about whom we have all read, and about whose existence we do not doubt. And second, there's a Sunday morning Clinton, whose authenticity some have doubted, but who may actually and genuinely exist side by side with the Saturday night Clinton. And third, I need to note, with the writer Dick Morris, that these two Clintons, Saturday night and Sunday morning Clintons, seem unaware of the existence of each other. It appears that if they were confronted with each other, they would deny each other's existence. I'll talk about this stuff. But what seems in Clinton's childhood to be the things that led to it tomorrow night. George W. Bush was raised as a Presbyterian in Midland, Texas, when his father was a lawman there. And then when they moved to Houston and became Episcopalians again, he was raised an Episcopalian. At one point he was an Episcopal actor